The Illinois House passed a bill cracking down on teachers who have inappropriate sexual relations with students. Right now, it's legal for a high school teacher or staff member to have sexual relations with a student who might be over 18 years old. This bill would make it a crime if a teacher or staff member is more than 4 years older than the victim. The bill's sponsor says right now the only consequence those staff members can face would be being fired.
Currently, an educator or staff member can have sexual conduct with an 18-year-old student and will lose their job if they're caught, but police cannot investigate, and the person can go on to work with students in other capacities outside of the school system.
And for first offense, the teacher or staff member could face a Class A misdemeanor or felony charges. All subsequent offenses would be felonies.